Hãy để mỗi lần tắm là một lần chăm sóc cho làn da của bạn với sữa tắm cá ngựa Our Turmeric Perfume Shower Gel, một sản phẩm từ nước Đức, được chiết xuất từ các loài hoa thiên nhiên, nhiều loại vitamin và protein. Sữa tắm cá ngựa không chỉ làm sạch da mà còn dưỡng ẩm, mang lại một làn da mịn màng, căng tràn sức sống. Với hương nước hoa quý phái lưu lại suốt 24 giờ, sản phẩm từ thương hiệu Our Turmeric đã chinh phục hàng triệu người dùng tại châu Âu. Tại Sydney, sản phẩm hiện đang được bán tại siêu thị Nam Phương ở Cabramatta và siêu thị Cycle ở Cali Heights. Để làm đại lý phân phối, xin liên lạc đài VTA qua số 0452 067 535.
Có một loại nước mắm thuần khiết, sinh ra để làm nên sự khác biệt, gói trọn tinh hoa của biển cả, đánh thức hương vị đậm đà thượng hạng, đẳng cấp, sang trọng, là món quà tình thân ý nghĩa để luôn nhắc ta nhớ về cội nguồn. Nước mắm Hoàng gia, tinh hoa đất Việt.
Nước mắm Hoàng gia hiện nay đã có mặt tại tất cả các tiểu bang trên toàn quốc Úc Châu với 3 kích cỡ khác nhau, bao gồm 250ml, 500ml và 750ml. Tại Melbourne, nước mắm Hoàng gia đang được phân phối bởi công ty Osvid Foods và bán lẻ tại các siêu thị và nhà hàng. Mọi chi tiết xin liên lạc anh Tony Bùi 0481 177 996.
Back everyone, welcome to our Sunday show. I'm Anthony Nguyen.
I'm Ken Fan.
Thank you everyone. So Ken, as you know, there is something that is very, very big that's going on around the Middle East at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone knows about this news. It's the Iranian war with Israel and America. So Ken, tell me, what are your thoughts about this whole situation?
That I would say a very long story. The conflict between Israel and Iran.
Yes.
And this time, Israel was backed by the US, and they bombed Iran exactly in Tehran,
Yes.
the capital of Iran, and killed the leaders. I would say the spiritual leader,
Yes.
Ali Khamenei, and he's the ruler of Iran in the last
nearly 40 years.
As far as I remember, it's about 37 years.
Yeah.
This really big incident. I would say the end of extremist Islamist regime in Iran.
Yeah.
And what they're trying to do, the US and Israel trying to do, is to bring down a very, I would say, dictatorship in Iran.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to seeing peace established in Iran as soon as possible.
Yes.
Of course, no one expects war happen. I don't know if you have experienced any, or if you have any memories about war.
Yes. So for me personally, yes, but more of the aftermath of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, Vietnam War.
Right. So my parents fled Vietnam.
In what year, do you remember?
I don't know the exact year, but they ended up in Pulau Bidong, Malaysia.
Yep.
So, as you know, that's a refugee camp. So think of a large jail, Ken. So me personally was born there in the refugee camp. So waiting for World Vision to give us food, like Red Cross, all those whatever company at that time was giving relief. So for me, growing up there and seeing, because there was one incident, Ken, that I can never forget, and I'd love to share it with you and everyone else. So as a child, we lived in huts. The thing that only separates me and our neighbor is a curtain, because everyone gets an allotted slot.
In the camp?
Yeah, and that's your house.
Really in the camp?
Yeah, like there's no house like how it is now. There's no
camp
structure.
house.
That's right. So think of one corridor,
Yeah.
and every family gets a curtain.
Yeah.
And however many kids you got and your family, you have to try and fit within that curtain. Okay? So one day I was, had a bicycle riding home, and all I could see was bombs and smoke grenades going into the hut that we were living in. So as a kid, I don't know, but I can never forget this experience, right? Asking my parents, why? What happened? but they were just running and grabbing me, running away. It's because at that time, the Malaysian government wants to dismantle the whole refugee camp.
Really?
They want everyone out. Yeah, because it's too long now.
Really?
They want everyone gone, so they bombed our home. So there was a period of time where literally me and my parents were sleeping just out in the open because there was no home, just waiting for the next food drop. You know, our shower at that time, Ken, was, okay, face this way, spray left to right, turn around, spray right to left. That's your shower.
Wow.
I still remember it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a story of a very war-torn experience of my personal, you know, living through a refugee camp. How about yourself? Like, you know, as you're older than me, so you would probably have more
Really,
of a first-hand
you know,
experience.
Yeah, you really, I was born just right after the war.
Okay.
Right. I didn't see or experience, you know, directly to the war, but
Yes.
I still remember how life was after the war. You know, very, very bad. At that time, you know, it's not like I was stuck in Vietnam because my parents decided not to flee to Vietnam.
Yes.
Because they're like my dad said, we just infants, babies. You know, he can't escape. You know, the country with the babies. Yeah, too difficult. Yeah, too risky.
Yes.
And he decided to stay. But then I grew up there after the war, and then I saw and I experienced, you know, very hard life over there.
Yeah.
We even don't have enough food.
Yeah.
We even don't have, you know, like what we have now. You know.
Yeah.
The school is something very basic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we, you know, like children, a lot of my friends pass away. A lot of my friends dies because of a lot of disease, the malaria, and you know, a lot.
Because the public health system, there
Yeah,
was
yeah,
pretty much none, right?
Yes, because you know, like, because as you may know, for the Vietnam War, you know, the North took over the South, and many Southern Vietnamese had to flee the country.
Yes.
And unlucky that the North followed Soviet Union, and the economic, you know, development is nothing there. Until the year 1989, they got economic reforms that make the country a bit better.
Yes.
They opened the door to the world. But before that, I would say before 1990s, the 1980s, that's a disaster for Vietnam.
Yeah, it would have been, because like economically, when a war happens, the country that suffered in the war takes decades to recover financially and economically, right? So I could imagine right after, you know, the 75, when Saigon fell, I can imagine all the way up to the 90s, it would have been very difficult for everyone in terms of money, food, health. Yeah. So that's why, like, I feel for any country right now in the Middle East and USA and Iran. And there's more questions I would like to ask about this, you know, like, because I'm very interested and very curious about this whole war thing, because it affects me in a way where, can I share with you my personal anxieties and fear that's happening in this war as a millennial? I feel like if a world war breaks out right now, as a millennial, I'm right in the age of being enlisted to go to war. So, you know,
I understand what you're feeling.
Yeah,
we're lucky we live in Australia.
Yes,
where, you know, like joining military is not compulsory.
Right.
But other countries, like developed country too, like Korea. If you Korean male, then you have to join the army. At least 2 years. At least 2 years.
And I think that's like Vietnam too, right?
Vietnam too. But if you have a good reason, it's like study or working or something,
you're allowed to exempt.
And then you're allowed to exempt. However, you can register. You can enroll to be in army.
Yes.
Right. And then, and you know, that I would say that's a good choice. For some. For some. Because
of discipline.
Who want to be trained.
In
a very disciplinary. Environment, and to be real men, you know, because really that help you with surviving skills. Right. Back to the context of the war in Iran now. Really, I would say the lives of Iranian people is very hard now. That, you know, we have a proverb. What happened is happened. What had to be happened. Right. the very dictatorship of Iranian leaders had to be ended, right? But in the transitional time, it's always very hard for Iranian people.
Yeah.
Many people escape, right? Many people have to escape right, Iran as refugees right now.
Yes.
To the border of Turkey.
Yeah.
To the border of neighboring countries.
Yes.
And a lot of people, even the Australian people who work there, are stuck there now, right? That very chaos in traffic by air.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know if you have any friends living there, but I have friends living there. And he told me that the situation is so tough right now. Because you can't, because the neighboring countries this time, because I would say, the story happened like this. So after Iran was attacked by Israeli and US army,
Yes.
they counterattack Israel and US
Yeah.
because Israel is too far.
Yeah.
US, of course, is very, very far in the continent,
Yeah.
right? So Iranian army force tried to attack diplomatic venues in neighboring countries like Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, right? So that's why all these countries closed the gate for traffic, for aerospace, right? So that's why it's no flight.
Yeah.
There's no flight.
Yeah. Too dangerous.
The only ways you had to escape by road, right? Even driving or bus, but very limited because bombing still happen.
Yeah.
So things it was a very, very tough right now.
Very unfortunate. But if you don't mind me asking, what do you think as Australians, right, and as a person living Australian, what should we expect that that could happen to us, whether it be economically or whatever it is? Because now, what I saw was that due to the Iranian war, the Strait of Hormuz, which is the oil route, is 20% of the world's oil transaction that happens within that route.
There's 40% of oil.
So there you go, huge.
Almost half of global oil supply. Did pass it. A very bottleneck.
Very huge bottleneck. That's right. So to me, economically, what that's going to mean is one, world fuel will skyrocket.
As you can see, recent days, the oil price at the petrol station soaring up now. Right, it was like almost 50%.
Wow.
In Northern Territory. Yesterday, the price is even $4 a liter.
$4
a liter. Here in Sydney, it's about 2.5. But in there for $4.
Wow, because it's more difficult to get there, or why is that? Why is it double for Sydney?
I don't know. Really, I would say it's a fishy there. It's skeptical. Because of course the supplies of oil, limited. But big company also take advantage of this incident
to raise the price.
To raise the price.
But $4 though.
That's what they're doing.
Take it easy, man.
No way.
And so Ken, one, I believe that fuel price, look, I don't think it's believe anymore. That is going to be a certain that fuel price is going to go up. Two, I see that world inflation would probably also have to go up because now your food, your all these imports are now affected, right?
Because the international logistics got trouble. People can't go by air. And the cargo can't go because they're scared of
100%.
being bombed. That really happened, and that break the international logistics. And of course, that directly affects to our daily expenses.
That's right. So that means, currently, Australia is experiencing a higher inflation rate already. At 3.8 compared to what the RBA target is at 2 to 3.
2 to 3.
So Ken, does that mean maybe interest rates are going to go up again in order to combat what's happening?
Probably, in terms of economic management.
Yes.
The RBA have to think about, lifting the interest rate.
Yes.
To calm down
The inflation.
the inflation.
Yeah.
To cool down. Like it's more likely to happen.
Yes.
But I would say, I hope, like Iran war, it's just a very, short-term conflict.
Yes.
And what US and Israeli military doing now, they try to attack as many places as possible that which they think were rebellion, working there.
Yeah.
They try to, demolish the current regime.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, they promote, maybe they promote or they encourage people with, we say more democratic view, so that, to be leaders.
Yeah.
That's a very long journey.
Yeah.
But we hope that Iran will have a new leader.
Yeah.
With, open-minded.
Yeah.
With, like I would say, more, I would say, negotiable.
Yeah.
To the world. Because for the last 40 years, I would say, they're very extreme.
Yeah, but like, so from a millennial's perspective, right, I'm very, like, subjective. So this is my personal opinion on things, right? So does that mean what was done to Iran also justifies if we were to go and bomb North Korea? Because they've been extremists for the last...
Yeah. Even,
so, you know what I mean?
Even Vladimir Putin too.
Yeah.
Of course, it's I would say it's a dilemma to the world politics.
Yeah.
Because, of course you can't bring down the regime
just because
they got different views.
That's right.
From you.
Yeah.
That really illegal. that really breaking the laws.
Yes.
But if they don't do that, then the dictatorship in Iran never stops.
It will. I understand.
Because the people in Iran is not strong enough.
Yes.
Because they control.
To turn over that regime.
They control power.
Yeah.
When you got power, when you got weapons, you control it. And that's a very long way, long time for the people to fight back. Yeah. Right. Let's see the story in North Korea. Let's see the story in Russia. Yes. Right. Then and even in Russia, even worse because they attack. They invade Ukraine. Yeah. But let's see. Why didn't Yeah. So. You see that if only Ukraine itself fight back and win over Russia, there's no way. Yeah. There's no way because they control it. They control power. They got power. Yeah. So if the US and Israel not attacking Iran, the people in Iran had to wait like 10, 20 years. Yeah. That's a very long way. Yeah. But like let's say, really, this is a dilemma. It is. And it's caused a very chaos in diplomatic relations. Yeah. Because like Australian government, they can't say that they will support US and Israel because they know that this is illegal. That's right. But they have to at the same time because we're allies. Yeah. Allies. Yeah. That's a very tough. I get it. Tough situation. It is a very tough situation, and that's the reason why I brought that up because, I mean, we hear North Korea being like that for decades, nearly 100 years, yet no one's touched them. Yep. Right. So, is it because of the oil, or is it because of a regime change? Because Iran's got. I saw the statistics. I don't know how true it is. Yep. That one of the biggest oil reserves belong to Venezuela, and Iran is also up there. That's a good point, Anthony. Very good point. Yeah. For a long time, Iran support Russia, and Iran support China. Yes. They selling cheap oil to Russia and to China. That's right. And Venezuela too. Yes. But like when the US see the rise of China, and when they see that China got very strong impact and influence all around the world, they of course want to stop this one. Yeah. And in Asia, China got of course Russia on their side, North Korea, and Iran too. Yes. And maybe India. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
They're very strong.
And
now.
that's very big economy.
Yep.
Yeah.
But in I would say in middle of America as a continent.
Yes.
Not as a country, right?
Yeah.
Venezuela and Cuba is there. Right. Very close to US.
Yeah.
And Venezuela is very, very strong exporter of oil. Crude oil.
That's right.
Yeah. So if the US bring down those governments in those countries, like they cut off, they weaken the enemy.
Yes.
Right.
I see it. Look,
They kill two very active members.
I see that.
Right.
And it's
Of
art
their
of warfare.
Of their opponents.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say mathematically simple like that.
Yeah. I understand, Ken. And look, thank you very much for tuning in this week, guys. There's going to be a lot more updates with this Iranian war as Ken and I find more information that we would like to share and update you guys on this whole situation. We also like to, give our perspective on what Australians should do to, just to safeguard yourself from it could be a longer war than expected, just in case. Anyways, thank you very much for tuning in. Happy Sunday.
Thank you, everyone, and see you next week.